What's going on, everybody? It's Joel here, and today we're doing the review of the Adidas Training Spezial. Okay, so I definitely butchered the pronunciation of the name of these shoes in the intro. So for my sake, I'm just gonna call them the Spezials. That's the way that I always thought it was pronounced, even though I think technically, if you were to say it the correct way, it's like Spezial or something. I don't know, it gets worse every time I say it. So just please bear with me on that. But these are one of the latest training shoes from Adidas. And from what I've seen online, these things have been the most popular shoe of 2025. Now, the problem is that you can't really get them. They have not restocked these since the end of May for the United States. They didn't come out until, I think, the second week of June in Europe. I'm not so sure they sold out there, but they have been sold out in America since they came out. I'm not even sure some of the smaller markets in the world are going to get these shoes, which is kind of a shame because they have a lot of appeal. Like, they are a training shoe that's based off a classic sneaker design. They're something that you could wear just about any time. They're comfortable to wear as a casual shoe. They're high performing enough to use as an actual training shoe. And let's face it, they are just cool. And that is probably the best reason to have these shoes. But I have really beaten these shoes up. Like, my white pair is pretty cooked at this point. But I also have this black pair as well. And the reason why I have white and a black is because when I first ordered these, I wanted to make sure I got the right size. So I got a size 10 and a size 10 and a half, but more on the sizing of these shoes when we talk about the fit. So let's just go over the construction of the Training Spezial. So the upper is a couple different fabrics. The, I guess, main part of the upper is a nylon Cordura fabric that spans, pretty much the entirety of the shoe. There are some synthetic leather overlays for the three stripes and around the eye stays, and then you have the classic T-toe toe cap, and that on the white shoe, if you couldn't tell, is an off-white color. It's not the same bright white as the eye stays or the heel counter. So it's worth noting that if that's going to bug you, don't get the white ones. I didn't even notice it until somebody pointed it out to me. So it didn't bother me at all. Of course, with the black ones, we have the same design, except the stripes are white. The black is the same black as it is on the heel counter and the eye stays. Now, taking a look at the back part of the shoe, you have the Adidas logo right at the heel, and then you have a synthetic leather heel counter. You have a Cordura tag back there. And what I really like about this shoe is the amount of ankle cushioning. It really makes the shoe kind of feel like, I guess, like a skate shoe almost, because of the amount of cushioning back there, but it does a good job in securing the heel. Now, the tongue is not my favorite design on this shoe. It's got a synthetic leather part on top, and then it's got like a cushioned interior. It's a little bit loose and a little bit floppy. It's not gusseted on the sides or anything, and that's like my main gripe about it. But I mean, generally it's fine. The laces on the shoe are also not amazing. They are a standard flat lace. They're not terrible. They're just nothing to write home about. They're pretty much unspecial. Now, taking a look at the bottom of the shoe, we have a full traction rubber outsole that contains the midsole on the shoe, which is called the Repetitor midsole. And I believe it's just a standard EVA foam, but this is a dual density midsole. So you have a softer foam throughout pretty much the forefoot to almost the very back part of the shoe, which switches over to a red foam for a more dense heel foam. So you have a softer forefoot foam for your plyometrics and running, and then you have a denser heel foam for stability for your lifting movements. Now, the way that the shoe is designed is that we have a rubber outsole carrier for that midsole. So even with pressure being put down, it's going to contain that midsole foam, and it's going to create a more stable experience just overall. So while I've tested these for pretty much everything, the only thing that I did not test them for is rope climbs, because they specifically told me to not rope climb in these shoes. They were not designed for rope climbs. But I will say that if you needed a rope climb in a pinch, you probably should be okay for a couple rope climbs, because there's no exposed foam here. There's nothing that you're really going to burn through. I feel like this rubber is going to hold up decently well for a few rope climbs, but just from that warning, I'm not going to test it. It's probably not worth my time. And I figure that most of you guys out there have shoes that you rope climb in anyways. Now, taking a look at the tread pattern of the shoe, we have a multi-directional tread pattern in the forefoot that is very similar to the normal handball specials. And then at the heel part of the shoe, I had to check that because I wasn't so sure. You actually have the Adidas 3-stripe logo as the tread pattern on the heel part of the training Spezial. And then you have the older Adidas logo. I'm really not sure what it's called. And that is on the heel of the normal handball Spezial. Cool little difference there. Different, but the same. But still, either way, it's pretty cool. The grip on these shoes is one of the best things about them. The grip is really, really good on these shoes. Now, the Repetitor midsole foam has a 6mm drop. These are actually based on the same last as the Adidas Drop Set 3. The whole shoe, while having the design of the handball Spezial, is built from the ground up as a training shoe. It has the same last as the Drop Set 3. All the materials here are made specifically for the training Spezial. So there are no carryovers from the handball or any other shoe for this one. Another thing that I also really like about these shoes is the weight of them. They are very, very lightweight training shoes, clocking in at only 10.4 ounces for a men's size 10 and the 10.5, which I found bonkers. Both of the shoes weighed the same exact thing. So I don't know if that's a bad thing for the 10s or a good thing for the 10.5s, but it's worth noting that I measured them the exact same. All right, so one thing that I gotta address with the build quality of the shoe is that the shoe is a loud shoe right out of the box. It is very, very squeaky. So let me get my not as used pair, which is the black pair, and give you a little listen. You need to have some kind of pressure when your foot's in there. It causes the tongue to rub against the lining of the shoe, and it creates a pretty audible squeak. These shoes are very loud. Now, I will say that with some wear, it does get lessened. It's not like night and day, but they do become a little bit more broken in and a little bit quieter. But if something like that was going to bother you, then you probably don't want to get these shoes because they are on the louder side. All right, so when it comes to sizing your training Spezials, like I said before, I got both the size 10 and the 10.5 because I wanted to make sure I got a shoe that fit me. And when it comes down to it, I would rather go with the 10.5. I think that overall it's a more comfortable fit, but I did break in the size 10 to the point where these fit me like a quote unquote glove. They're a little bit tighter in the metatarsal area than the 10.5, but that's really the only, I guess, kind of issue that I have with the size 10. It's not even that bad after breaking anymore. I just have to be a little bit more conscious about the socks that I wear. The 10.5 obviously is going to have a little bit more length, but it's not enough for me to say that these shoes feel sloppy. The 10 in length actually fits me better after breaking these shoes in. But either way, I still think the 10.5 is the better fit overall for me. And I would say that these probably size the most closest to Rad V2s. Now, they are built on the same last as the Drop Set 3. So in terms of width, they're pretty similar. But the difference that I noticed between these shoes and the Drop Set 3s is that the toe box, just overall volume inside the shoe, is more spacious on the Drop Set 3 than on the Training Spezial. But I think the actual width of the shoe in the metatarsal area is pretty much the exact same thing. Would I say that they are the widest shoes out there? Probably not, but they break in pretty well. They're a wide shoe for Adidas, but Adidas compared to other shoes, wide shoes is kind of just on the normal side. And if you're somebody that just has very, very wide feet and you still want these shoes, then I think you should probably be okay with just going a half size up with these. All right, so when it comes to running in the Training Spezials, these shoes are not designed for any kind of long distance running, but I still did Murph in them, which is 2 miles of running, which is for a training shoe, that's a good amount of running. And I thought that these did fine. They are very, very flexible. They're super lightweight. They don't have a ton of cushioning, and the cushioning that they do have is not like soft. It's more geared towards lifting. But if you're used to running in a lot of these training shoes nowadays, this is not gonna be that bad to run in. Like, I'm not gonna recommend that you go out and do a 5K in these shoes. I probably would not do Murph in these shoes again, but I think if you're doing, up to a mile of running, you should be fine. If you're doing treadmill walking, you should be fine. I think that because of the lighter weight and flexibility of these shoes, they are acceptable for running. But obviously, due to the way that the outsole is designed with its sharper edges, they're not gonna feel that natural to run in. They're a little bit on the clunkier side. But I think if you are somebody that's pretty good about pose running, you won't find any issues running in these. Now, when it came to body weight and plyometric movements, I thought the Training Spezials did an amazing job. Just by looking at these shoes, you would not be able to tell how flexible and lightweight they are. But 10.4 ounces in this day and age of really heavy training shoes, like we're looking at 14 ounces being the standard for like a size 10.5. 10.4 ounces makes these shoes feel like a feather in comparison. And also the fact that they are just so flexible throughout, especially given the amount of rubber that's on these shoes. It doesn't look like they would be flexible, but they really are. Which, like I said before, aids them for things like running. It makes these shoes feel very agile in comparison to a lot of the other training shoes on the market. They still have a slightly more clunky feel, but that's not really something you notice when you're doing box jumps or you're doing burpees. They're plenty flexible for getting up and getting down for doing burpees. The midsole on these shoes, while being more on the dense side, is still never harsh on your feet. They're still very comfortable to wear. The upper holds your foot in place very well. So if you're doing a bunch of pivoting movements like burpee box jump overs or even dumbbell box step overs, you're not going to be kind of sliding around inside of these shoes. And the heel lockdown is also excellent. So you never have to worry about your feet slipping out of these shoes as well. One of the concerns that I had about these shoes in the first place was, were they going to feel clunky or too heavy for doing bodyweight movements? But that is not something that you should be concerned about at all, because these do very well for those movements. All right, so now it's time to talk about how well these shoes performed for lifting. Now, admittedly, they did not perform as good as I just initially thought that they were going to be. I thought that these were going to be like rock solid lifting shoes. But truth be told, there are still some better options out there when it comes to the heaviest of lifts. But I think for the majority of people, the Training Spezials are going to be more than enough. For me, they're going to be something that I would throw on for just about anything I was doing. I have the utmost confidence in these shoes, but I still can't say that they are better than something like CXT2s or even like the Rad V2s. Now, a few things that they do really well. The ground contact on them is excellent. You have a very flat contact outsole, pretty much from heel to toe. So getting good planted ground feel on these shoes is very easy to do. The grip is also very, very good on these shoes. It's probably the best feature other than the fact that they're like really lightweight. Now that lightweightedness of them obviously doesn't give the shoe much more stability, but overall I don't think it detracts too much from the shoe. But the fact that the shoes are flexible, like torsionally, they're very flexible, front to back, they are also very flexible. That can kind of take away from the overall stability of the shoe. Plus, the midsole on the shoe is, like I said before, it's a little bit more on the dense side, but it does have a little bit of give to it. Plus, you have a 6mm drop. The heel to me on the shoe doesn't feel like that solid. Definitely not as solid as the heel on the drop set 3. But what I do like about the heel to toe drop on this is that it doesn't feel as pronounced on this shoe as it does on the drop set 3. Whereas the drop set 3, the heel is noticeably higher than the forefoot. On this shoe. It's just, it kind of gradually goes down and you don't really feel the drop so much. So deadlifting in these shoes doesn't feel bad at all. It doesn't feel like there's a huge heel lift or anything. Obviously, you do have a little bit more foam there, but honestly, I would pull any of the higher weights that I would pull on any flat shoe in these, and I wouldn't worry about it too much. When it came to squatting, I didn't have any issues with these. I liked the amount of ground contact that I was getting out of them, though I will say, like, torsionally, they do not hold up the best. So if you're under some pretty heavy loads, you can notice the shoe want to flex and not really support your foot as much as some of the more rigid training shoes out there. But that's something that's kind of a give and take, right? So if you want a flexible shoe, you have to take away from the stability of it. If you want a stable shoe, you have to take away from the flexibility of it. So I'm okay with that give and take on the shoe. It just makes you have to think about the way that you're squatting a little bit more. When it came to Olympic weightlifting movements, I thought these shoes did an excellent job. Once again, the forefoot foam doesn't detract from power delivery. They are a little bit more on the flexible side, so they do really well when you're barbell cycling. If you're going for an absolute max lift, I think that these probably might not be the best option for you if your mobility and your body control isn't like really top tier. But overall, I think for the majority out there, using these shoes, these are going to handle pretty much any lift that you throw at them just fine. Now, even though I said that there are more stable training shoe options for you if you wanted to lift, it really just comes down to personal preference. For me, I really like flexible and light training shoes, so I would still hit pretty much any of my max lifts with the utmost confidence in the training specials. I would not shy away from using these shoes. Though, if you gave me the option, I would probably go for one of the other more stable shoes. Like even the drop set 3 to me is a little bit more stable than these if I absolutely needed to hit a max lift. But I think for the day-to-day, I would be just fine doing pretty much anything in the training specials. All right, so these cost $120, which is a relative bargain in today's marketplace where everything is going up and is continually going up. Watching the market right now, you're seeing tariffs starting to affect prices. Hopefully, it's long before that affects the price of these shoes. But for $120, this is, in my opinion, the best training shoe at that price point. I think it does everything really well. There are pretty much no faults. The only things that I can think about that are reasons that you would not buy this shoe is if your feet were extremely, extremely wide. That's probably one of the reasons why you wouldn't want these shoes. And if you just weren't really into the style of them, then that's another reason. But I think all in all, these are one of the cooler and better performing training shoes to come out in a long time. They just took an old silhouette that people liked and they made it into a training shoe. Genius. Why didn't anyone think of that sooner? This is just an older silhouette updated with modern technology, and it works really well. It still has an old school training shoe feel because they're lightweight. They're not like overbuilt like a lot of the training shoes are right now, and they work well. Now, another reason is maybe you are like some kind of rope climbing fiend. That's another reason why you want to buy these shoes. But overall, I think for the vast majority of the people out there, these are going to handle everybody's training just fine. I can't really think of a situation where these aren't going to work that well. Besides high rocks, that's the number one thing that you wouldn't want to wear these shoes for. But another reason why these are so good is because you're going to want to wear them casually too. I wear this white pair pretty much everywhere. I wear it into the gym, I wear it out of the gym. This is like my casual sneaker. They're more comfortable than the normal Spezials. And I just overall, I think that the overall package for a training shoe and a casual shoe and a travel shoe, the training Spezials really hit on every front. Now, if you needed just like a hardcore training shoe, are these the absolute best shoe that you're gonna get out there? No, but I also don't think that the expectation from the people buying these is that they wanted the best competition shoe out there. So if you were looking for a really cool training shoe that performs really well, then I highly recommend the Adidas Training Spezial. If you guys have any questions about these shoes, feel free to leave them in the comment section. And as always, guys, please hit that like button, subscribe, and thanks for watching.